Welcome to CSGuitars, the science of loud. Today we're taking a look at this new Blackstar St amplifier, and while this might look like any old classy combo, Blackstar have thrown out the standard valve amplifier template that we've been building on since the 1950s and gone, what if we took a modern electronic approach to the valve amp? If we were inventing these today, without that 70 years of history, what would we create? So despite this being a 50-watt 6L6 power valve metal monster, it's super lightweight thanks to its specially designed Celestion Zephyr speaker and the complete removal of the heavy power transformer, instead opting for a 400-volt switch mode power supply to send electricity around the unit. The St also shares desirable modern features with Blackstar's recent Department 10 valve preamp pedals, namely the DSP-driven CabRig, which emulates a number of speaker cabinets for direct recording in a more reactive and dynamic manner than IRs are capable of producing. I'm looking at the combo version with the 6L6 power valves. This is the higher gain, metal-voiced version of the St, also available as a compact head unit, but if you prefer a more vintage-voiced amp, then there is an EL34 version in the inverse colour scheme. Now let's get into some of the innovations, as there's a lot going on here that may not be super obvious. These are designed to operate, control, and importantly sound like a traditional valve amplifier, so it would be entirely reasonable to use one of these and think that nothing at all has changed. The most unusual aspect about this amp is how it delivers power to its critical components. Traditionally, in valve amplifiers, there's a large, heavy power transformer that takes the mains voltage and transforms it through the science of induction into a range of voltages that are useful to different parts of the circuit. The St, however, doesn't have a power transformer, instead opting for a high-quality 400-volt switch mode power supply. Not only does this save some weight compared to the mass of iron in a transformer, but it allows for universal operation. Power transformers need to be specifically designed to cope with the voltage of the main supply they're going to be operating on, which often means creating two different versions of an amplifier for the American and European markets. Switch mode power supplies, on the other hand, are happy to receive any voltage between 100 volts and 240 volts, meaning that no matter what country you live in, or indeed what country you're travelling to on tour, you can plug this in without having to worry that the wrong mains voltage is going to explode your amplifier. There's also no need for any expensive step-up or step-down transformers to match mains voltage. Just plug this in and you're ready to play. A switch mode power supply also means that there is no AC electricity anywhere within the circuit of this amp. It's all operating on DC, with the rectification being done within the power supply itself. This means that the heaters for the valves, which would typically operate on 6.3 volts AC, are now running DC. Now that's actually very desirable and something that was often too complex to integrate easily into traditional valve amp design. There's no reason that valve heaters need to run from AC. It was simply traditionally convenient to do so because power transformers deal in AC. But AC brings with it the risk of 50 or 60 Hz hum, which can be injected into your signal, particularly by valve preamp heaters early in the circuit. So powering the valve heaters from DC is the less noisy, quieter option that St makes easy and effortless thanks to its switch mode power supply. Traditional valve amplifiers are also extremely power inefficient, which is a major point against them in a world that cares ever increasingly about wasting energy. Therefore, Blackstar have implemented a number of power-saving features into these amplifiers. The St will put itself into a power-saving safe mode when there's no instrument cable connected to the input, or if it senses there's no speaker load connected to the output. Additionally, the standby switch on this has been repurposed to have a proper function. I've infamously spoken out against the worthless nature of traditional standby switches that do nothing more than disconnect the high tension line from the plates of the power valves to stop them amplifying, which really only serves to stress components by suddenly connecting and disconnecting high voltage. Here instead, the standby switch disconnects the main speaker outputs, silencing the amp, and then reroutes the signal to an internal reactive load, which mimics the impedance responses of the speaker to protect the amp, while keeping the full signal path intact for silent recording. This then goes through the DSP CabRig, which utilises Blackstar's advanced simulation software to emulate a number of speaker and microphone arrangements perfect for home recording or silent stage applications. The switch mode power supply also means that Blackstar are able to fully control the internal operating voltages in a way impossible for transformer-based power distribution. We can choose between the full 50 watts for maximum volume and headroom on stage, or the 2 watt mode for recording studios or home use, and that 2 watts on this combo is still immensely loud. Limiting the internal operating voltages in this way keeps the tone more consistent between these two power modes than would be achievable loading the signal down with a power soak. Sag mode limits those voltages in a different way to try and recreate the feel of a valve rectified amplifier undergoing power sag, where the amplifier wasn't able to deliver enough power at moments of high demand, creating a spongier feel to the loud transients when playing. Outside of those technical changes, the amplifier features 2 channels, a traditionally voiced clean channel which stays clean across the majority of its range, and a high gain channel featuring a voice switch which engages an additional solid state gain stage in front of the valve preamp, similar to how we would put an overdrive pedal in front of a valve amplifier to shape that sound into a more aggressive high gain tone. As such, this amplifier is one of the few amplifiers I don't feel the need to put a tube screamer in front of. The voice and channels are foot switch controlled, and you will be as delighted as I was to learn that the foot switch is included. So we have a lightweight combo amplifier packed full of modern design and features without sacrificing that all-important valve power section, which contributes to the feel of these amplifiers so much that players are very reluctant to move away from valves. For demonstrating the sounds, I'm going to throw a couple of Lewitt microphones in front of this combo so we can hear that Celestian Zephyr speaker in action. If instead I wanted to use an external speaker cabinet, like my 212 Hofnine over here, then it'd be a simple case of disconnecting the internal speaker and finding the correct impedance matching output to connect to my external cabinet. At the same time, I'm going to connect an XLR to the CabRig and take that sound directly into my interface. The CabRig sounds can be programmed into the amplifier using the associated software by connecting the amp to your computer via the USB connection. So if the cab sounds that I'm using in this video don't float your boat, you don't think you like them, don't worry, there are hundreds of other options you could choose from. And lastly, I'll be putting a delay pedal into the effects loop so we can utilise that feature. Now I can definitively say that this is the best lightweight, efficiency-conscious, switch mode powered valve amplifier combo I've tried all year, and it will probably remain so until other companies catch on to just what can be achieved by rethinking some of the fundamentals of valve amplifier design. Switch mode power supplies aren't new technology. They power just about everything else, so there's really no reason that amplifiers need to stick to big, heavy power transformers for any other reason than tradition. Guitarists over the age of 35 might grumble that this is not the way that it's always been, but for younger musicians, it's the performance and convenience of equipment that sells, and this is definitely a step in the right direction to ensuring that valve amplifiers remain relevant in a musical landscape where old, heavy equipment is giving way to lightweight, compact gear that can connect directly to soundboards. If this combo or any of the other amplifiers in the St. James line interests you, then you'll find links to the products in the description underneath this video. And don't forget to click all the buttons you're supposed to make this one viable to the ever-changing whims of the YouTube algorithm. That's all for now. Keep it loud and stay safe. What weighs more, a kilogram of steel or a kilogram of feathers?